Hi, it is September 2nd, 2018, and this is Breaking Late News. Hi, I am your host, Eric from longboxreview.com, and joining me is my friend, the man, the myth, the legend, Travis from Oddfellows Thoughts on YouTube. Hey, Travis.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I started my morning off doing a run, about 3 miles. I'm preparing for a 5K later this month. And Travis, you know that old saying, pride goeth before the fall?
Sure.
With me at my advancing age, it's more like pain goeth before the fall because, my God, my left hip is killing me.
I don't run anymore. I got a knee that tells me that it's not happy running.
Hip, my knees, my right ankle because I got a bad sprain last March. So, I'm just all sorts of aches and pains now. But it's all good now. Everything I'm had a chance to relax before we got together this morning to talk, and took some pain medication before that too. So, I'm good.
Awesome.
What about you?
No, well, I've been reading comics actually. Just waiting for the show. I'm done reading singles. I have a bunch of trades I need to get caught up on. So.
Oh, nice. I've actually been doing that a little bit too. I'm in between shipments from my comics and some free time, at least about the last week or so. So I've actually been going into my drawer boxes here and pulling out, back issues that I bought over the years, things I haven't read, and I'm starting to read those. I mean, I have tons of trades to also read, but I've been trying to do that like at night when I go to bed. I'll have a particular trade at my nightstand and I'll read that until I'm ready to fall asleep. But so I actually read the Batman Hellboy Starman 2-issue thing.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
Then,
I don't have that. So.
Oh, really? I'm surprised.
Right? Yeah.
Well, you being a Hellboy fan as you are, I suggest you try and find that.
Awesome.
I also just read the issues of Superman. It was the storyline Crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite, something like that. Whatever, it's from the 90s or 2000s or something. Anyway, I wanted to get a trade of that many years ago. I thought, that might be a cool kind of story. Red Kryptonite in the post-Crisis universe. Never bought the trade, and so finally I found some of the issues online that I got and finally read it, and I probably didn't need to get those.
Yeah.
It was okay.
So remind me, Red Kryptonite's the one that kind of basically alters him in some fashion. I mean, that's the one that makes him body swap or do all kinds of weird things each time you get it.
Pre-Crisis, yes. This post-Crisis version was actually Mr. Mxyzptlk, his doing. Mm. And so all it did was rob him of his powers temporarily.
Oh, wow, boo.
Yeah, I know, right? Not
I guess the last Red Kryptonite story that I read was with Ambush Bug, where he swaps bodies with Ambush Bug. So, Ambush Bug gives him Red Kryptonite as a birthday present, not realizing what it's going to do, and he body swaps with
Oh my
Ambush
God!
Bug.
I had no idea.
So Superman's in Ambush Bug's body, going, how does he make this teleport thing work? And he's rubbing the antennas and whatnot. But, yeah. Keith Giffen, it was funny.
So where did that appear? Because I have the first miniseries and I have an annual.
It must be the second one.
Okay.
It must be the second one then. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it must be the second one.
You'll have to show me that sometime.
I will.
Okay, well, shall we get into some news, Travis?
So I'm here.
All righty. So just to let people know, in case you're new to the Breaking Late News episodes of the Long Box Review podcast, Travis and I get together about once a month, and we go through the previous month's worth of news, stuff that caught our eye, or things that we think we should offer our valued opinions about. So this, some of this stuff is old, very old news. So you probably already heard about it, but what you get here is the commentary. And so we'll start off with one of the older bits of news, something that is very dear to our hearts, Travis and myself. The fact that the comic book saga, Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, is going on hiatus for at least a year.
At least a year.
And
the way it ended.
Yeah. So issue 54 was the last issue. This is the issue in which this hiatus was announced. And Travis, he always gets his comic books before me because I get him every 2 weeks, whereas he gets them weekly. Mr. Moneybags. Anyway, he messaged me and said, "Did you read this yet?" So I had to wait a week before I got to read it. But oh my gosh, what a way to end the series right before the hiatus, and now we have to wait at least a year. That is crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, yeah, well, it's crazy with the wait. In my opinion, it's crazy we have to wait a year, regardless of what happened. But then with what happened, it leaves, I mean, I guess maybe that's the fun, is it leaves this huge amount of expectations. What is the story going forward? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's only one other, in my brain, there's only one other character that could have, somebody dies. But, there's only one other character that could die in it that could change the story more than one of the characters that died in this issue, in my head. Yeah. And that's the narrator. That's, I don't know. I guess there's the idea that maybe they're not really dead, but still, I don't, man.
It was definitely a gut punch. And that series is a constant set of gut punches, which is what makes it, one reason why it's so great.
Right.
But yeah, wow. That's, man, that'd be like, I don't know, pick your favorite TV series and, something major happens and you have to, well, I guess that's kind of Doctor Who.
Well, no, but right. Yeah.
That's probably the best equivalent right there.
Years for it to come back. Yeah. So they're taking a year so they can ensure that they're going to give us the best story when they come back. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're bored with doing it? I've drawn, 54 issues. I'm kind of sick of drawing these people, and I want to go draw something else. Fiona Staples.
Yeah, I mean, because they didn't offer specifics as to why they were going on the hiatus, but I kind of figure maybe that's probably it. Just kind of burnout, perhaps, or trying to avoid burnout.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's not like they don't take breaks. I mean, they're the first book that kind of launched that. We're taking these 3 months hiatus between issues, between trades, to recover, to take a trip, to see our families, to whatever, kind of thing. And I'm not faulting them for doing that, as far as, wanting to get away from that. Because 54 issues straight, basically, that's, I would assume you'd want to maybe stretch your creative muscles and do something else. I mean, I know she's done other things. She does the occasional cover. She did a little bit of Archie there. When they were relaunching Archie a bunch and whatnot, I know she did some issues of Archie. But yeah, so from a creator standpoint, I totally get that. But, I just have concerns with when you come back, are you anywhere remotely in the same mindset? Maybe that's what they want. They don't want to be in the same mindset, but I don't know. I come back to lots of projects that I've got started, and if I come back to them a year later, I do not have the same sort of energy coming back to them that I did. Mm-hmm. Then it's just coming back to finish it, not because I'm excited to go back to doing it, I guess. So I don't know. I hope it's not the end, but I get concerned when that length of time goes by that it won't be the same. Mm-hmm. Well, clearly it's not going to be the same. My guess is we're going to have a massive jump of time. And because they've done that before, they've gone from Hazel being, infant to suddenly Hazel's, 4 or 5. So, I don't know.
And we've been kind of picking on the artist, but, it could just very well be Brian K. Vaughan needing a break as well.
I suppose.
Writers get blocks too, and they, as well. I know whenever I was working on a particular story or set of stories, I always was thinking about this other idea that I wanted to explore.
But he's been doing that though.
That's true. You're right.
He always has multiple projects. I mean, unless he's got something going on that's going to take, maybe he's got some other TV thing that's really going to take up a lot more of his time.
Mm-hmm.
That's true too. So, and like I said, I'm not picking on Fiona. I just, I don't know. The creators in general, and another conversation is, so Saga is one of the higher selling books, right? I mean, it brings people to the store. What do all those stores do? Now they don't have the monthly draw. I mean, the upside was before, in between the monthly draw is, well, the months that they're shut down, at least the trade comes out. So I'm going to be able to sell that to keep some current Saga stuff moving. What are they doing now? I mean, I know it's only one book. It's not like it's, that shouldn't be the, breaks the bank. But if that's what gets your customer to come in the store and then they casually buy something else while they're picking up Saga, but Saga is the reason they come to the store. Now, why are they coming to the store?
Mm-hmm.
So from a retail standpoint,
I'm
curious about what that does. That would, like I said, no one book, is I wouldn't assume is not the store, but
Now,
I know a lot of people. That's the book they read. That's the book they read.
Have you heard any complaints or backlash or concerns from retailers?
I'm thinking, I don't remember who specifically it was, but it seems to me like I saw some retailers on Twitter that were kind of like, I mean, it wasn't like, they weren't, we're not going to sell any Image comics because they're going on, it was nothing like that, but there was a, that's our draw. I mean, that we're admitting that was a huge draw, that they had customers that's why they came in. They have pulls because of Saga. Now that doesn't mean they aren't going to suddenly not have pulls because of Saga, but that's why they have a pull. I know lots of friends who are big comic book fans, and that's the one comic that their significant other actually reads. That's the one comic that they can convince the significant other to read, so they can at least have, hey, we read comics together, kind of thing. So I don't know. I just think it's an important comic, and it's curious that it's.
And of course,
which kind of leads into another conversation we're going to have in a little bit about how comics are being sold.
Yeah, exactly. This is just the first of many things like this that I wanted to bring up. It's interesting how this has occurred basically within the last month. All these announcements, I mean. So it's curious, very curious. But of course, we'll be waiting with bated breath for the return of Saga in a year plus, whatever. I don't care how long it is. I'll buy that damn book.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind either. That whatever it's going to be, I'm coming back to it. I mean, even if it were to be, heaven forbid, even if it were to get to be a year from now, and one of them decided that they weren't coming back, and they continued on to try and tell the rest of the story or whatever, I would even pick it up then. But it would be weird.
Wait, what are you saying? So if, let's say Fiona Staples decides, you know what, I'm done with the book.
Yeah. She doesn't want to come back to it. She's off doing something else cool.
Yeah. You would get it with a different artist involved?
Yes. Yeah. Because I want to know how the story ends.
You completist.
I want to know. Well, no, it's not. No, I mean, it's not just a matter of I'm going to collect it because, I've been collecting it this long. I'm invested in that story.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I want to know, I want to know what goes on. I mean, even if that were to, because you don't know what could happen. I mean, I don't wish ill on anybody, but a year-long break, all kinds of stuff can happen in a person's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a year, they could decide, I hate comic books in general, and never come back to it. Just saying.
God,
whereas if you're stuck in the rut of doing a monthly book, you're stuck in that routine and you don't break out of it, and so you just keep making it. I don't know. I'm just talking now to all the paranoid things that go on in my head as purely as the person who's consuming the entertainment. Oh my God, what's this mean? Kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, let's go to the next topic, which is related in a way because referring to the comic book market and the impact of certain elements. But I just, I know a lot. I know Dan DiDio at DC Comics gets a lot of crap from a lot of people. Some of it, I will admit, is deserved. Maybe not all of it, but man, he said some things not too long ago that I'm like, what's going on? So let's see, when was this? Yeah, August 2nd. So a month ago, he was asked about the drop in sales from 2016 to 2017. It was like it says 6.7% drop in year-to-year sales
for DC.
I don't know if it was.
Or is that in general?
I think it's in general.
Okay.
It doesn't say. There's a link here, but I'm not going to go to it. Anyway, but what he said was, my fear is that there's probably an oversaturation of product. If you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at 400 new periodicals a month. I can't even imagine the number of collections that came out a month. It's overwhelming. WTF, Dan? What?
Exactly.
So there's more product, therefore there are fewer sales? Maybe it is. Maybe that 6.7% drop is... I'm going to look it up here. I should have done that already. Maybe it's just DC, or maybe it's DC Marvel. I don't know. No, looks like it's overall. Yeah, it's overall. Yep, says comics and graphic novel market slipped that percentage. With sharper declines in comic store and newsstand sales mitigated by stronger sales in the book channel and digital, according to this estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't...
That's stupid. I'll just say it. That is dumb. Having more options does not hurt the comic market. It makes the comic market better. Maybe it takes longer to weed through the stuff you don't like to find the stuff you do like. But competition does not make for a poor comic market. What competition does is it creates better comics for all of us. So if Dan and DC, want to be competitive in that market and get money, they need to make a better product and continue to make a better product, right? To me, that's crazy. Anytime there's any talk of there's too many books out there to choose from or any of those things, no, there isn't. As far as I'm concerned, there could be 100 more. Granted, I have to start making financial choices as to which things I want to buy and which things I don't. But I would love to have that problem. I would love to continue to have the problem of there's just too many good comics and I can't get them all.
So he also says, if you're looking at the expansion of the market, we keep on seeing new companies being introduced every day. They seem to be coming out with a much stronger amount of content, which is I yes. noticed that as well, that's great. These guys are coming out on the ground running. I think that's probably adding that burden onto the retailers, not just the product line that we do.
Okay, I guess I can see from a retailer standpoint that you have to start making harder choices as to, because really, in reality, me and you are the secondary market, right? The retailers are buying the books and then they're reselling them to us. So they have to make a decision onto what they're buying to then attempt to sell to us, kind of a thing.
So what?
So I get the struggle there. If there's all these, if there all these lines, how do I decide what I'm buying if I'm the comic book seller, if I'm the shop?
So because there's so many offerings, they can't buy as much to resell to us, and therefore their sales are down?
Yeah, it still doesn't make sense, though, does it?
I'm not an economist. I don't work in comic book retail, so I don't understand the logic here. So I'm maybe someone who's watching here on YouTube or listening in the podcast feed down the road. Maybe they have a better understanding of this and can help explain it to me. But
right.
I just thought that was just I don't know.
I still don't agree. Like I said, the more good comics that are out there,
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I was kind of keying off is it sounds like he's almost saying we shouldn't have so many good content providers, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm pretty sure that's not his point. He was just trying to explain something from a retailing point of view that, you know, like we just said, I don't understand it. So it's just one more thing that Dan DiDio has said that sounds kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And I actually give him a lot of credit, and I try not to jump on the I hate Dan DiDio bandwagon, but man, this one just kind of, it's like I had to say something about it.
I don't hate the guy, but that it's, there needed to be follow-up questions or something around his statement. So
yeah, and there could have been something, I don't know, but
not that I saw.
Yeah, but not that I saw. Anyway, relating to DC retailing, the DC came out with or is putting out comics with new paper. It's not the glossy stock that we've been used to for the last 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years. I don't remember when the glossy stock first came into play, but they went back to a non-glossy paper, and I believe they're switching over to the non-glossy stuff for their entire line. So I wanted to there are two questions I had. One was, why are they doing that? And then two, I wanted to get your feedback on the new paper. So just explain why really quick, because the first couple news reports relating to this wasn't explaining why they were doing it, but apparently it has to do with the Walmart books. So the 100-page giants that they're doing at Walmart. And so as a result of their investment into those titles and the print stock they wanted to use to do them, DC made the decision to shift from the glossy paper to the non-glossy paper. And so which of course necessitates a change in the coloring process. That,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that they have to do. Yeah. And so that's why. But when I read, I think it was, I want to say an issue of Batman or Catwoman that came out, where I saw the non-glossy paper, and that was the very first thing that I saw, or that I noticed was, boy, the coloring looks really dark in general. Now, granted, it's a Batman book.
Well, as I say, those issues you're referencing are dark books.
Yeah. Right? So it took me a few minutes reading each issue that I did to realize, wait a minute, the paper's different. But so how do you feel about this paper stock change and how it looks?
So when you say the coloring process is different, like how they color it, or are you saying that now the colorists are going to have to go back and learn a new way of setting their colors because of the way it prints now?
The latter, because coloring is dependent upon the paper in which you're putting the inks. Sure.
Right. I knew that to some degree, just because I remember being at a con and Kelly Sue was talking about Image allowing her to choose her paper. She could do whatever she wanted for paper. And she was like, as a writer, she's like, I don't, know, or whatever, and realized that, we need to talk to the artist, the colorist, because that's the people who it's going to matter the most to, kind of a thing. So I haven't noticed when you mentioned the coloring, I haven't noticed, but maybe that's because the books that I'm reading, like we've mentioned, are those darker books. And so therefore it hasn't registered to me that it's been, I like it. I'm all fine with that. As I don't need that glare. I find that glare frustrating. Maybe more so as an old geezer who has to have a book set in the right place to meet my, to meet my bifocals, to be able to see it correctly. And so sometimes that glare is annoying, and having to, do the shift with the page to to see the whole thing and whatnot. So I'm all for that non-glare. I mean, I guess it's a non-issue for me as far as that goes. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually like the feel of the paper, texturally.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting into, I like real books. I like texturally the non-glare paper. It has a different texture to it. It doesn't feel like a slick, glossy thing. But I hope that doesn't mean that it has a different, breakdown. I don't want the comic to start melting in my fingers, while I'm reading it, kind of a thing and whatnot. So, but no, I'm, so far I'm fine with it. As long as it isn't putting some as long as these stupid Walmart books aren't putting some undue expense on making all the rest of our comics, that somehow that's going to translate into a price change. Is all I'm saying.
You mean beyond $3.99?
Yes. That, now that we got this new process, we have to pay for this new process. Who flips the bill for that new process? Is it Walmart flipping the bill for the new process? Because if they're changing to a new process, right, that means they had to have, is this cheaper paper? I mean, somewhere along the way, somebody had to make the decision they're swapping over to this. And if they're going to swap over to it, is there expense involved? In my business, when we shift from using one source to another source, there's always an inherent initial cost in changing to whatever. So, who's going to eat that? Who's going to eat that price? I guess is if DC or Walmart is eating it, cool. I'm all happy for it. If that somehow translates into 5 cents more for my book or whatever, and I'm one of those people that's not throwing a fit over the price of comic books. I generally don't squawk at whatever the price is, but that will annoy me that they're jumping through hoops for Walmart, and I'm going to pay the bill for a book I'm not going to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact I will not buy those Walmart books. I have no intention of it. When the little piece that's in there that I have not read comes out in some other different format, I will get that. Yes, but I'm not getting those Walmart books. And so I do not want Walmart shenanigans costing me something. So,
okay,
consumerism. Yes.
Yeah. No,
anyway,
I totally get you.
That's my take on it. So,
yeah, I agree with you on the. I don't miss the glare from the glossy paper, but I think now I've only looked at a few, because I was trying to remember what other issues that I've read that has this other paper stock in them besides the Batman Catwoman that I mentioned, and I'm sure I did.
And Justice League on the flat paper?
I don't. I should have looked up what issues when they first started transitioning over to this they were, but I don't remember feeling the same way as I did initially when I first encountered it. So I guess I'm okay with it too. And like I said, not having that glare on the pages is nice. So for the same reason. But I don't know. I really like the way that the colors look on the glossy stock for sure. In comparison, now that's just highly judgmental, and I need to take a look at it, I guess, more in depth.
Yep.
And we have in the chat here, someone Jack is saying, "I'll take glossy pages over matte paper every time." So, Jack, if you why, as we go to the next thing, if you want, tell us why you feel that way. Get a counterpoint here. All right, we'll come back to that if you have something for us here. But moving away from sort of retailer stuff to awards stuff, we have the Harvey Award nominations. So Travis and I talked. I can't remember if it was last time or the time before that we talked about the Eisners. Actually, I think it was last time and the time before.
Right, because the nominations and then who won.
Right. So here are the Harvey Award nominations for Book of the Year. I only focused on the Book of the Year. But Travis wisely asked the question, well, what's the difference between the Eisners and the Harvey Awards? And I'm like, I don't know. What is the difference? It's just another award, right?
Right.
So, being the diligent podcast host that I am, I looked it up, And just in case anybody else does not know this, so the Eisner Awards are essentially the Academy Awards of comics. So think of it that way. The nominations in each category are generated by a 5 to 6 member jury. Now, take this all with a grain of salt because I pulled this off of Wikipedia.
Well, no, it's accurate. Yeah.
Generated by a 5 to 6 member jury, then voted on by comic book professionals. The Harvey Awards, by contrast, are which are given for achievement in comic books, named for writer-artist Harvey Kurtzman. Let's see here. They're nominated by an open vote among comic book professionals. So the Eisner Awards are curated. The nominations are curated. I take it the Harvey Awards are more of a democratic process. I don't know how you for either award. I don't know what does a comic book professional mean for both of those awards, but we'll just set that aside for now. And then just for historical context, both of these awards were first started in 1988 after the Kirby Awards were discontinued in 1987. So I didn't realize that, I guess. I've always known about the Eisner Awards, and I knew of the Harvey Awards, but the Eisners seem to get all of the oxygen in the room. So I just wanted to highlight the Harvey Awards here. Travis, out of the list of the nominations for the Book of the Year, I actually have and read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. How many of those have you read?
6.
Ooh. So I'll just list them off real quick. Black Hammer, Secret Origins. I guess that's a collection of probably the first set of stories. I don't know. Boundless, Everything is Flammable, Hostage, Kindred, Lighter Than My Shadow, Monstrous, which got some Eisner Award. Was awarded some Eisner stuff. Right. My favorite thing is Monsters, Roughneck, Shade the Changing Girl, which that was a nice choice there. Spinning, The Best We Could Do, The Customer Is Always Wrong, The Flintstones, curiously enough, and The Prince and the Dressmaker. So the 5 that I have read are Black Hammer, Lighter Than My Shadow, Monstrous, the first volume I've read, Shade the Changing Girl, and The Flintstones. What were yours? And
I've read those, and I've also read My Favorite Thing is a Monster.
Oh, okay. Cool. I just wanted to, because I was very pleased to see Lighter Than My Shadow on there. I'm going to show this for the folks watching on YouTube, but here's the book. This is by Katie Green from Lionforge, and as you can see, it's a thick book. Mm-hmm. I'm very pleased that you have read this, Travis. We should. I've been wanting to talk about this book, so maybe we should get together and do that.
Okay.
It's a great book, but so those are some really good things. I noticed, Travis, that where's my notes here? That Drawn and Quarterly, the publisher Drawn and Quarterly has 3 of these books. Mm-hmm. Which that's interesting. And I think somebody else, DC has 2. Is that it? Everybody else is a one-off, I think. Oh, no, First Second has 2 as well.
Right.
And then everybody else is 1. Image is only on here once with Monstrous. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Drawn and Quarterly seems to be the publisher to watch in terms of, I guess, quality books
or Harvey's. Depending on so it clearly has a different influence. If this is purely picked by peers, so maybe this is stuff that people look at as being more on the art side of the world, whereas the lists we had for the Eisners, of course, those lists are very large and are closer to pop culture picks as opposed to art picks, maybe.
I know.
That's how the list seemed to me. It seems to me that one is more focused on a, quality product versus a consumer product.
So do you apply more importance to the Harvey Awards based on that criteria, or no?
No, I personally don't. But then I consume comic books in a general rule differently depending on what I'm reading. I don't compare a Marvel DC product to a drawn and quarterly product, because I know I would expect I'm getting completely different things out of those two, with rare exception. I'm getting two completely different things out of those, out of those books, out of those companies. So I don't compare the two. They're different kind of thing to consume, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with lots of stuff. I don't go into the movies to watch a superhero movie with the same level of expectation I'm going to have if I'm going to, watch a Stanley Kubrick film or something. They're you know what I mean? They're removed.
Oh, yeah.
They're removed from each other. They don't, so I don't go in with any kind of the same kind of expectations. I have certain expectations of what I want out of my superhero comics, and that's a completely different expectation than I have out of independent comics. I have different expectations. So
it does beg the question for me. I'm totally just supposing here. Are the Eisners? I don't know. Are there some politics involved as to which things get chosen by that jury?
You narrow the jury down to 5 or 6 people. Clearly, they have their own whatever.
Yeah, who are these people?
Whatever their interests are, and I think I've read who those people are. The people have been on that jury for a while. People drop off, they get a few other people, but there's been people who've been around on that jury for a long time. So I'm sure there is some level of whatever. Somebody has to narrow it down. It's just, it's like the Academy Awards and whatnot. People question that all the time. How is it that these are the movies that get in and these are the movies that don't get in? Kind of thing. It's the same sort of a deal. Whereas I guess the upside to the Harveys is that you would assume, unless somebody's cooking the books, it's a more pure sort of thing. And that you are just getting other professional creators going, this is the thing I liked most. This is the thing this year, impressed me the most. It could truly be just as biased, I guess. But I would also assume there's less pressure as far as that initial, these are our options, to pick from kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Comic Crack in the chat says, he agreed, Travis. Thank you for saying that out loud. I assume referring to your comments about the movies. I think there are too many people who have the same expectations for both.
Mm-hmm. And comics too.
Yeah.
Parents. Yeah.
And so we don't get too far away from the paper stock thing. Jack did respond. The colors are just better. And growing up in the 80s, I always hated the cheap interior pages. Really? I guess I'm a little nostalgic for newsprint.
See, I don't like the old pages, the old bleed pages and stuff like that either. I'm not a newsprint fan at all. Was excited when they went to Baxter, and then when they moved to Baxter, even better stuff. 100% with you there. But what is this new paper to me is nothing like that old stuff from the 80s and earlier.
Yeah.
They're completely different. Is how I see it. So
Jack does say that the new map paper isn't as bad, but the coloring does suffer, and that was kind of my initial reaction as well. Okay.
I just read a ton of dark comics, I guess. I don't notice it.
Yeah. Next on my list here is this was a oddball thing. Given these last several years, the trend towards giving credit where credit is due in superhero fiction. DC within the last year, finally admitted Bill Finger's contributions to Batman, and now he's listed as a co-creator, which is accurate. Should have been done a long time ago.
Right.
However, there is another person who is claiming some what do I want to say here? He's supposedly he came up with Batman first. That's probably the best way to say it. This is Frank Foster. So I saw this article. There's some art of his that was done in 1932, I think it was, before Bob Kane supposedly came up with the idea for Batman, and then Bill Finger actually made it what we think of as the Batman. Anyway,
Finger made it cool.
Yeah, quite honestly, I kind of think Bill Finger is the creator of Batman, regardless of what Bob Kane did. But that's just my opinion. But apparently Frank Foster came up with this character design, called it the Batman. Even actually, an optional name for the character was Nightwing.
Nice.
Yeah. But chose the Batman because he thought it sounded cooler. And if you go look that article up online, and look at the pictures, because there's a website there, where all this information is detailed from I think it's the son or grandson who's doing this, making sure that I think it's the grandson, that grandpa is gets his due here. There's even a secondhand, or no, I guess it'd be third-hand account of a meeting between the family and Paul Levitz. I think when he was president, perhaps before that, I'm not sure, but it's apparently at that time Paul Levitz did not dispute the authenticity of the claim that the Foster family was putting forth, which that was very interesting.
Paul Levitz is historically very pro give everybody credit
for the characters that his company owns, and for the people who worked on them. Yes, this is I think a little different though, in that Foster never did work.
But I'm just saying of all people. I'm just saying though, of all people, my understanding is historically Paul Levitz worked really hard to make sure everybody got paid for anything that got used anywhere ever, kind of thing. I mean, so that to me that's less surprising than if some of the tight-fisted people that are there that don't want to admit to anybody created anything, acknowledged anything. So
yeah, but I mean, did you look at the drawings that Frank Foster did?
Sure, and somebody would have forecast in the future. I probably drew Batman when I was 4 or 5 too, and didn't know I was drawing Batman. Just saying. So, so to some degree, my question is that and maybe I have Batman history messed up in my head wrong. Kane had an idea of what he wanted to do. He had some scribblings of what he thought it should be and what the name should be and whatever. And Bill Finger went, and then tweaked it and made Batman what it is. I mean, because otherwise it would have been Birdman or God knows what would have been the original concept. So are they saying that Finger was influenced by this person? I mean, that Finger stole it from them, or that was kicking around the office and Kane saw it and went, "Oh, I want to do this, but I'm going to do my own thing." So where's the implication? Just because two people are having the same zeitgeist at the same time does not mean that, do you know what I mean? That they had any undue influence over who came up with whatever.
Well, so it's interesting you say zeitgeist here, because I mean, there's any number of examples between Marvel and DC alone where they came up with the same kinds of concepts, same kinds of characters at about the same time, right? I mean, that just happens. But I mean, what 6 or 7 years before Kane, and apparently this webpage, the Foster webpage, talks about that, where it's at least implied that Paul Levitz agreed that perhaps Bob Kane might have seen those designs.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. Just the story of what we know of Bob Kane.
Yeah.
Not that I am hating on Bob Kane, but he's clearly somebody who knew how to pay attention to what's going on and attach his name to what
Yeah.
There were,
he was
he's the only person in comics that's done that. But, so that wouldn't surprise me, I guess.
Right.
But.
Right. Yeah. There was nothing said there that I recall involving Bill Finger at all. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was really interesting.
Sure.
The drawings of, it's, if you look at the early Batman stuff from Bob Kane and Bill Finger, there's some similarities there with the Foster stuff, but I don't know. It's the most important thing here is that he created this character with the look that he did, and called it the Batman. Years before the character debuted at DC Comics. So that's the interesting part to me. Okay, so we talked about Saga and hinted that there was some other things relating to that, and so that's the bit we're going to get to. So, the news bits are this: Action Labs, which is a small company that I buy some books from on occasion. They are some of their books, one of which I had pre-ordered. They had I had pre-ordered up to I think issue 3. And nothing was coming out, and I thought, well, delays, that happens. But then it was announced that some of their books are going to digital singles, and they're going to print the trades. One of which is Midnight Tiger. That's the one I pre-ordered. But Princeless, which is a book that I have been meaning to read. I've been meaning to go find some collections and read those because I hear they're really good. Is it Princeless Raven? Or Raven is a different book. I'm not sure. Toyetica. Those are some of the books that they're talking about. We'll come back to that. On top of that, there've been several, or a few at least. There might be more now that I might have missed. Several titles that were ongoing are switching to being put out in trades now. For example, Motor Crush, Moonstruck is another one. Fence from Boom, and finally, Bendis and Oeming's Powers series will be switching over to just releasing as trades. What an interesting development. Travis, I remember us discussing decades ago, and I believe we both thought that in some cases, wouldn't it be better if we, instead of getting monthly comics, we got a larger chunk of the story with some time in between those issues? And here we are all these years later, and it's happening in a sense. Not exactly what we were thinking, but what do you think of this development? This is such an interesting, I'm not sure how it's going to work. What are the sales going to be? What's the reception going to be like? I don't have a problem with it, but obviously because I don't read those books, as a general rule, I mean, I read Powers religiously every month that it came out. I wouldn't call it a monthly book.
Right.
by any means, but but it's interesting that instead of single 20, 22 page issues, now we're going to get however many pages that the trade's going to be.
I think to some degree that's because the market has changed. Us monthly readers, I think, are potentially the I don't want to say we're the dying breed, but there's this whole other group of readers who read completely differently, that grew up on manga and stuff like that. You don't get single issues of manga. You buy manga in big fat books of these long ongoing series and whatnot. So, and so the market's there for that different kind of consumer. There's plenty of people who just read in trade. They don't read in, like I said, in single issues. So I get it to some degree. It just always feels to me like that the single issue is what keeps the word of mouth going on a book to make it to the trade. I mean, how many times have we heard, at least I can remember creators talking about the fact is that, they're squeezing out the singles to hope to get to the trade so then they can so then they can make money on the trade, kind of a thing. And I don't know. To me, it seems strange. Like I said, that kind of loses that. And it feels to me like Motor Crush and whatnot, the creators for that, at least the ones that I saw, the artists on the book and stuff, it's like, the monthly grind was just too hard. This will make it easier for us to do. So how inconsistent are the trades going to come out? See, like, for instance, Headlopper is a book I read, I really enjoy, from Image Comics. It comes out quarterly, but it comes out consistently quarterly. They don't want to do the monthly comic. That's too hard for them to do the monthly comic, but they do it quarterly. But it comes out. I know when it's going to come out. I have confidence that it's going to come out at a particular time, and they don't miss, they may miss their deadline by a week or whatever, but it's consistent. I'm suspicious that with these and the way some of this stuff, maybe not the Action Labs where they're going digital first and then put a trade out. To me, that's a different business model than I'm just not going to put anything out except for what they're calling an original graphic novel, which I'm hoping is written differently, whatever. We've talked about that in the past. If they're going to put it out as an original graphic novel, I hope it's designed differently with a different pacing in it than pacing it like single issues and then throwing it all together and calling it an original graphic novel. But, where was I going with that? I'm suspicious that now it's even going to be longer between story. That it's going to be closer to the saga thing. I mean, because now it's, are they really going to hit a target, or do they even have a target? It's going to get done when it gets done. Cool, I guess. If you're writing something that I don't feel like I need to be invested, because to me, I have a completely different investment in a original graphic novel than I do in a monthly series. In a monthly series, it's serialized, so I'm invested in it as a reader completely differently than I am going into an original graphic novel, which I look at as being something that would be contained enough I can read it and not have to worry about the stuff around it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what it is. I'm with you. None of those are books that I'm particularly all that interested in. Kind of a thing. So, but the digital and then go to a trade, Marvel's doing that with some of their books too.
Right. We talked about that before.
All the books that seem to be hooked into the Netflix shows and whatnot are all being digital first, then coming out in a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a different sales thing than the whole, I'm just not going to put out a product until I have a trade to throw in there. I don't know. It's interesting. If everything went that way, I'm going to be bummed out. I'll tell you now. So I like the monthly grind.
Yeah.
So.
I think the digital singles and then print trade model is probably the more interesting one to watch, just for people that are curious how the market works.
Right.
And I think maybe to the size of the publisher plays into this a great deal.
Sure.
The comic book commenter in the chat says, I would hate for the industry to move to trades or larger page counts as opposed to single issues due to the investment a company has to undertake to publish something. It would limit the types of stories that we see. DC would only invest in more Batman, Superman. Marvel would be Spider-Man, X-Men, etc. Harder to take chances on graphic novels paying a creator for 6 months worth of work versus a single issue. Yeah, I think that kind of goes towards what you were
right.
Because
and he's right. I mean, we've known of companies like 2 issues in, the big 2 issues in, already pulling the plug on something. Whereas you're right, you'd be paying, for the big 2 anyway, you'd be paying a creator up front a significant amount, not knowing for sure what you were getting. I mean, they're doing some of that, but it's with people that they have pretty high confidence in the success rate. They're people who already make money for them,
But I still think though that the smaller companies, this might be a way to they can make this work very well, as perhaps compared to Marvel and DC. It's a completely different financial situation with those two companies as compared to the publishers that I mentioned before.
Right, and it clearly must be because there are lots of small presses that's how they put things out. Drawn and Quarterly doesn't do anything remotely close to a monthly. Fantagraphics does very few, I think. I mean, there's a lot of small press out there that they're making books. They're making books, quite honestly. They're not, it's sequential art, but they're making books. They're not, it's a whole different racket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned manga. I know that Raina Telgemeier, sells a ton of books between her own stuff and then the babysitters club books that she does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Scholastic is just selling gangbusters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. But like I said, that the whole digital singles trade, print trade thing, I'm very curious how that's going to work. How long lasting it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it'd be fun to watch at the very least. All I know is I have to wait for my Midnight Tiger trade now. So I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
The next couple items I have here, Travis, I put on here specifically thinking of you.
Oh.
The first one is speaking of new publishers or small publishers, there is a new comic book creator collective called Circle Pit Press. And the reason I put this on here is because it says here a group of comic book creators springing from the world of punk rock and heavy metal have formed this collective. So did you take a look at who's involved in that?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what really comes of it and whatnot, but it sounds fun to me. I mean, that's, it's definitely a vibe that I can subscribe to and enjoy.
That's what I figured.
Right. So, I mean, like I said, I'll be curious to see what actually comes of it and whatnot, but no, I think it's pretty cool.
So, it says here the initial slate of creators include Matt Miner, Kelly Williams, Marie Enger, Jonathan Brandon Sawyer, Ray Nadine, and J.B. Rowe. And they have, a long list of credits to their names, but getting together to produce something under Circle Pit Press.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll be I'll be looking out for what they produce. So, as I'm sure you will be, and you'll have to keep me up to date on that, because punk rock, heavy metal, not my thing, but I appreciate it, in a general sense.
Sure.
And then the next thing is Doom Patrol number 12. Travis, do you know how long has it been since that issue was solicited to this point?
8 or 9 months, right?
Oh my God, really?
I don't know.
It seems like a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So
yeah.
It
wasn't it solicited before Milk Wars?
I think so.
It's been a long time.
So I was thinking, probably about 4 months, but man, if it's twice that, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, do you know why it was delayed? What was going on with that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I have my own opinions and assumptions, but I have no idea. No.
Well, so the news is that it's finally coming out because Dan McDade is stepping in to finish this long delayed comic from the Young Animal imprint, and I think once this comes out, doesn't that conclude any of the Young Animal stuff that DC was doing?
Yes.
There's nothing else coming out, right?
Yes. I mean, there's supposedly more Doom Patrol story coming. They're working on the next arc, supposedly. But I'm assuming it's not coming out under Young Animals. It'll come out, I don't know, under Vertigo or whatever. But
so what? You being the huge Doom Patrol fan that I know you are, just real quick, what has been your opinion about this book?
And it's changed over time because I've gone back and reread the latest stuff again and whatnot. I really enjoy it. I would say it's still a Doom Patrol book, but it's not the core Doom Patrol book. I mean, all the people that most of us quickly associate with Doom Patrol are largely secondary and third, characters in the book. But I mean, for it just being kind of an homage to Morrison and some of the other early stuff, because of course Morrison's stuff was tapped into some of the even earlier stuff. It's fun. I mean, like I said, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the art. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's still it won't be the talked about stuff. I don't think, unless, somebody, it's hitting somebody else differently than it's hitting me, clearly. But like I said, it's been fun, but it doesn't feel, and I've had other viewers who comment, I think it might even be the comic book commentator that commented on some other videos of mine that's made me think more and more about the fact that, other than a small bit of story about Negative Man, like I said, Doom Patrol itself has been largely just kind of window dressing around this Casey character, which is fine. Because he can tell whatever kind of story it wants to, and I've enjoyed it. It just doesn't have it's Doom Patrol, kind of thing. I mean, even less so than like the Byrne run of Doom Patrol, and I really detest the Byrne run of Doom Patrol. So, but I enjoyed this. But I mean, as far as it feeling like Doom Patrol, it's kooky and has some kooky stuff in it that matches up, but it's at the same time, it's not. Like I said, I enjoy it, but where does it fall in the grand scheme of Doom Patrol? I don't know.
Yeah,
somewhere towards the bottom of stuff that influences Doom Patrol itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love the story, I love the retcon and all that kind of thing, and the whole thing's I think will read well once this is finished, and we can actually read. Like I said, the gaps have been so drastic between issues that it's hard to keep the continuity of what's going on because it is a kooky book on top of it. But,
mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned liking the art. We're talking about Nick Darrington, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know he is working on, I think, the Batman story with Brian Michael Bendis for the Walmart giant.
Mm-hmm. And doing the covers for Miracle Man. Mm-hmm. He's working. So my thought is that the problem with the book, the delays, don't have anything to do with him.
Okay.
That's my take on it, because he's working. Unless he reached a point when I can't do this book anymore. But they have him working. I mean, he is working for DC. So.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at. Is I think he's not finishing it because he's busy doing this other stuff right now.
Right.
Which is too bad. It'd be nice if he had finished out the whole run, but
right.
Whatever. We'll get the final issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Speaking of comics that are ending, and this is a long time coming. Simpsons, and I don't read this. I've never read a Simpsons comic, but Simpsons comics ending after 25 years.
Yeah. Wow.
That's right? What? 25 years. It says that currently one of the longest running comic books that has never been renumbered and has been in publication since 1993.
Yeah.
And put out by the same publisher. SpongeBob Comics is taking an extended break. So I'm curious, because I know Greg Schiegel, who I talked to on an earlier episode. He works on SpongeBob Comics, so I'm curious how that impacts him. But yeah, I just like these long running comics. I was trying to think of other comics that have been around, for that long or about that long, and just long running things, and especially things that haven't been renumbered.
Right.
And the only other one I can think of is Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think of?
Because I mean, like some of those other old original Image comics, like Spawn, it hasn't stopped or changed along the way. I can't remember, but yeah, Savage Dragon is one of the. It's one of the few.
It might be the last one now.
Yeah. If that matters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just a curious data point to me.
Sure.
I'm sure Simpsons comics will be back in some fashion. Who knows? Have you ever read a Simpsons comic?
In free comics. I mean, I've occasionally gotten them for the free comic book day. I mean, it's just I don't watch the show either. I mean, to be honest, it's just not a sense of humor that entertains me. So, I'm not.
You're just not into it.
Bothered to read it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But creators that I do read came through Simpsons. So, I mean, Gail Simone, she wrote Simpson comics for quite a while before moving on into other stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, it's those kind of things that's like, it doesn't directly impact me, but at the same time, the nostalgia of it's sad to see something that's been around that long. If they're taking a hiatus, I would assume would it be an indication of some sort of financial issue, right? Would be my guess. Well, why else would you put the brakes on something that's making money?
That's true. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
so whether it's a restructuring or whatever is going to go, but
how long has the Simpsons? I don't want to put the S on the end. Simpsons cartoon. How long has that been around before they started the comic book?
I don't know.
It was just a few years before, if I remember correctly.
Right.
I don't claim that I do. So yeah, it's just interesting.
I think it's amazing that a piece of that kind of pop culture has survived as long as it has.
Exactly.
It's amazing to me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It might not be as relevant as it once was, because I used to watch Simpsons religiously, because I do like that sense of humor. But I haven't watched it in many, many years regularly. I'll catch an episode or two here and there, but it hasn't interested me that much lately.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Harvey Awards. We talked about Drawn and Quarterly in relation to that. And here's another award involving Drawn and Quarterly that I thought was interesting. The Man Booker Prize for Fiction includes Nick Dernasso's Sabrina graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the long list for that prize, the Booker Prize for Fiction, and it's a first for comic books and graphic novels. And
right.
The book was published by Drawn and Quarterly.
So I heard about this a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, whatever, they had been picked. So I, jumped on Amazon because it's cheap and gets it to me quickly, so I could order it to have it, so I could read it, because I want to read something that got on that kind of list. I'm curious as to what that is. It being the first thing, I want to know, because I didn't know about the book at all, to be quite honest. So, and it was either sold out or they didn't have any more or whatever on Amazon. So, I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't a giant print run, but anyway, as another piece of commentary about the book. So clearly people have a lot of energy around it and have bought it up or whatever, but so I'm still looking for a copy.
I remember seeing it in previews and contemplating buying it at that time, and I didn't. Now I kind of wish I had, because it interested me. It caused me to read the solicitation and consider buying it. But yeah, so I'm probably going to do the same thing that you tried to do eventually. But anyway, I just whenever comics in any form break through in some area where they're traditionally not included, like the Booker Prize for Fiction, I have to notice that and have to highlight it as well. So.
Right. Well, it excites me, and it the elitist in me pats me on the back and goes, "See, comics are a real thing, right?" So I'm old enough to read comics that I still feel like I'm waiting for all the validation that I know comics should have. And I'm not, I mean, there's lots of comics that are just, pure, fluff, just like there's tons of television that's pure fluff and movies that are pure fluff, but there are great works out there. And so when this kind of stuff happens, it just, even if I hate the book, I'll be excited about it just because of the fact that it's one more place where, it's being acknowledged that, that comic books, that sequential art has value beyond being funny books. So,
yeah, good point. Okay, next on the list, go from a nominated for a prize book to something that was not ever won't be coming out now. But I wanted to get your take on this, Travis. So DC Comics solicited a few months back the Monster Society of Evil Shazam. I think it was a deluxe hardcover that they were going to put out. I ordered it because I was interested in reading some Golden Age Shazam stuff. Captain Marvel, the Golden Age Captain Marvel stuff. It's just, he's a character that, I like, generally speaking, but I haven't read a whole lot of.
Right.
And considering how popular he was back in the day, he was actually outselling Superman, which was the top selling book in the industry way back when, and caused DC. This is old news to a lot of people, but caused DC to sue Fawcett, and eventually won, and basically shut down Captain Marvel's publication stuff. Of course, ironically, later DC acquired all the Fawcett properties, including Captain Marvel. Anyway, so the reason, though, that DC canceled this reprint was for concerns over how that story depicted racist situations. I assume regarding probably Japanese, because this was during World War II timeframe. Mm-hmm. So the question I have, I guess, for you, Travis, is what's the line between being offensive and spotlighting our failings as a society? So if we reprint this, yes, it contains offensive material, but I don't know. I guess part of me thinks that we shouldn't shy away from showing the racist material. I'm not saying we should celebrate it, of course, but if you just hide or ignore or sweep under the rug this stuff, then I don't think we address it. We don't get past it. We don't deal with it adequately. I don't know. What do you think? Am I way off base?
I agree with that sentiment. I don't see how this book does what you're talking about, though. If there was some massive preface and post text about all of that stuff that now we would all consider pretty abhorrent, then yes, then the book has value for that sense. The whole this is how America was then, acknowledging it and clearly we should do better and all of that, then it would be great. But that's not what the book's going to be. The book's just basically reprinting all of that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I want to read that stuff too, because there's lots of stuff in there that I'm interested in and whatnot. But clearly the awful drawn, slanty-eyed, depiction of all of those characters, I get were of the era, and I can appreciate it for that and whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, I understand why they're shying away from it, because is the conversation going to be had? If the conversation is going to be had around that, then great. Like I said, I get what you're saying. I just don't know that them not publishing this is keeping the conversation from being had. Or if they were to publish it, I don't think that creates the conversation. Does it?
I kind of think it might, though. People, as they find out about it, as people talk about it, then you get people bringing up the racism and the issues surrounding that. I don't know.
Right.
It's all conjecture. It's all supposition here, at this point, but.
Right. So I guess for me, I'm of two, like I said, I would love to read that little stuff. I wouldn't buy that even if it came out, to be honest with you. I'd rather luck out and come across single issues to read, because that's just how I want to read the stuff. And I'm always curious about it, but then I start thinking about like the other stuff that's out there. I mean, is there a value in reprinting the Little Black Sambo stories with the original art that was there, kind of stuff? I mean, I get it. It's part of our history, and I'm not saying it should be hidden away or whatever, but I don't know, how do you produce it and it not be celebrated? Because if this is being produced as this fancy hardback, we're celebrating Captain Marvel, but there's all this stuff that's hanging on, and that, I mean, us in America, right? I mean, that's part of the hangups we have as a country anyway. To celebrate what we are, we also should be acknowledging all the horrible shit that we've done that gets us to being what we think we are now.
Exactly,
and it hasn't been fixed yet. I mean, I don't know. It's like I said, it's one of those. Easy for me to say as a white dude.
I was going to say, yeah,
whatever. So like I said, I guess I would love to hear the Japanese community, what their thought is on the stuff being produced and whatnot. Like I said, I'm old enough to remember things that now I would be so shocked, that they would be on display the way stuff was in the 70s even.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I remember going to a restaurant in the hometown that me and you lived in, and it had storyboards of, the Little Black Sambo stuff up on the walls.
Yeah.
And they were everything that now that we would consider racist, the big lip, the whole, everything about that now I'm just like, oh my God, that was in a family restaurant, just pasted on the walls like it was no big deal or whatnot. And, we change. So I'm not saying, I agree with you. We shouldn't run from all that stuff and whatnot, but how do you put it out there that it's not celebratory? I don't know. Like I said, I would need somebody else's not for me to judge, I guess. And for somebody else who it has an actual impact on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I was going to say what you touched on a second ago. I'm coming out from an ignorant white guy's perspective, so it's very easy for me to look at this in more of a clinical way as I laid it out for you. But yeah, it's a much larger issue. If they're like I said, if they're doing it to avoid having the conversation or backlash or whatever, I don't know that's the right choice. But I also understand, if something is offensive, you don't want to, as you said, celebrate it as well. But I will say DC has put out other collections of their Golden Age material, and in the forewords they have, some of which I have in my collection. They put in basically disclaimers saying, this book will contain racist depictions of people during World War II.
Cool, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
cool.
So to me, knowing that, I don't understand what the difference is. The difference, of course, really is, it's just a different time. The books that I have were published, probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Things are different now. And attitudes are different, and which is good. It's good that people are conscious of those things and making decisions based on those realizations.
Right.
So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that because they solicited the book and then basically turned around the next day, so to speak, and canceled it. It was a very short time period.
So they clearly must have gotten blowback from somebody.
I'm sure, yeah.
And from a significant somebody for that to be. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, I'm going to skip this next thing, Travis. Go to these other things. Speaking of Captain Marvel, there's a few books that are coming out that I know Travis has had an interest in. Or at least two of them, or the concepts anyway. But I put the first one in, Travis, because of my own reaction to how Captain Marvel has been portrayed more recently at DC Comics, the New 52 version.
Yes.
So they are coming out with a new Shazam series written by Jeff Johns and Dale Eaglesham. Mm-hmm. And I saw you did the thumbs down there. Was that in relation to the New 52 introduction of the character, or this book in particular, or both?
Largely both. Because it's this. Different. Right? He wrote the other one.
Jeff Johns, yes.
New 52, right? Mm-hmm. Which there was almost nothing about. The art was great, but the story itself, the character, the values, what I see, Captain Marvel, Shazam, whatever you want to call him, the big cheese,
the big red cheese,
Yeah, nothing. He did not carry any of those values in the New 52 version, and they've got the same person is going to now tell the story again. They're going to start out from the beginning, and they're going to tell us again. No, I'm not a Jeff Johns fan first and foremost, but judging by the last product that was put out by him. I'm not going to read it. I have no intention of picking it up unless there's, I don't, which is a bummer. I like that universe. I like that world. I like Eagleham. I mean, everything else about it says I want to read it, but no, I'm not even going to pick it up to get burnt on it. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat. I feel the same exact way that you do about Jeff Johns' take on that character.
I don't get that at all. His take on it.
Hated it.
I don't get it.
So
is that supposed to be the modern version, or is it or did it suffer the New 52? Because a lot of the stuff in the New 52 had this kind of edgy or whateverness to it. But like I said, I don't have enough faith in a guy who's going to have his own line of comics under DC that's called The Killing Zone.
Yeah.
To write a book about what I consider to be one of the most wholesome, maybe even more so than Superman, because he comes at the world as a kid, a wholesome kind of a thing. And I get maybe that's not realistic, that kids now are so much edgier and hardcore, except I don't believe that. Because until my kids hit a certain age and started consuming large quantities of what was out there for the general populace, they did not have the worldview that they have now. I just think it's unfortunate. So,
yeah. So what about this next one? So they're coming out with this thing called Suicide Squad Black Files, which is I guess a magic-driven version of Task Force X. Which
this book has already been coming out. They're just calling it different.
Oh,
but it's already. So they've been putting out for the last year or so. They have been putting out Suicide Squad Most Wanted is what I think they've been calling it. And each issue's an extra $1 because it's oversized, and they've almost always had a Katana story in it written by Barr, who's one of the original creators, and then an artist on it. And then the second story is something else. And a few of them have been El Diablo. At least one of them has been El Diablo. Kind of a story. They've also had a Captain Boomerang one. They had a Killer Croc one that was the backup kind of the story of it. But the Katana has been a continuing story about her basic beef with Cobra. And it sounds like what you're saying is that's what this is in this. So they've renamed it something a little bit different to kind of put it under it's magic now. But this has been going on. I mean, me and I at least know Sergeant America, who is on my channel quite a bit. Mike, we've been reading those, and they've been pretty decent. I mean, the Mike Barr written Katana is closer to the original Katana. It has some of the kind of feelings of the 80s comics, but not so stuck that you're like, oh, he hasn't learned how to write in a modern convention. You know what I mean? There's some of the creators we loved back when we were kids that try to write stuff now, and it feels like they just haven't quite moved into how comic books are done now. He isn't suffering from that. So I've been enjoying that thing. So I'm glad to hear there's more coming, because they had another one that they kind of canceled. So they must have repackaged it. So.
Okay, interesting. Because I knew the books that you just referenced. I knew that stuff was coming out. But yeah, now that you've said that,
I mean, to me, I didn't realize this was coming out, and I saw this thing in here. I'm like, well, that's just repackaging and continuing on with the story I've been reading.
Well, but okay, so let's talk about that. That's an interesting way to. Well, let me back up. So the stuff that has been coming out for Suicide Squad with these the sets of miniseries, let's just refer to them to them that way. I think that's a really interesting way of telling stories within DC Comics, and I'm curious why they don't do more of that. I guess with other concepts, other characters.
I don't know, because it's one of the things I liked about the New 52. For a while they had the DC Universe, they called it, and it was that they would tell 3 or 4 issues of a story of something and then move on to another character. It's a way of exploring the larger, in my opinion, the larger DC universe, and use characters that don't have their own books, and they got a place to tell these kind of one-off shot kind of stories and whatnot. Like I said, I've been enjoying it. I like the format. I mean, granted, in this case, it's tied within. These are people who operate within, Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad in some sense or another, which I still think that Katana is a weird character to have in that. It makes no sense other than, yes, she does kill people. So, whatever. But when was the last time we actually saw Katana kill somebody? I can't remember when that was, but I don't know. But like I said, I'm enjoying it, and I would be pro if they did some other, if they did a Justice League one that was that way, and they were using these lesser characters that they could tell stories with, or whatever. I'd buy it because I like that, because I like the universe, and this is a way to kind of explore it.
So you'll be getting the Black Files version of Suicide Squad stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Both those characters are interesting, and like I said, the Katana story has been good. I even really like the last El Diablo, and that's not a character I'm terribly familiar with, but I like the last El Diablo story that was put out in what I have read, so I see no reason why I wouldn't read this too. Yeah.
So the first issue of this will contain two stories. One is you mentioned the Copra story by Mike W. Barr. In Katana, so that has to do with those two characters. The second one, I guess, so this is why I put this on here, is because it was more magic related. So they're trying to find Sebastian Faust, and so Waller puts together the team of El Diablo, the Enchantress, and this is what caught my eye, the Gentleman Ghost, which is one of my favorite characters, favorite villains in DC Comics.
Yep.
And did you see the cover by Fraser Irving?
Yes, Fraser Irving.
Oh my god!
I wish the whole book was Fraser Irving.
I would buy that book just for this cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he were doing the interior, I'd totally be on board with this.
Yeah, same here. But I'm getting it anyway, so.
We have to let me know how it is. I don't know. Maybe I'll get it.
Sure.
I'll have to keep that in mind when I'm doing my next order. Speaking of Katana. This is the last new book type thing I'll bring up, but they're coming out with another Batman and the Outsiders series. But it's written by Brian Edward Hill, whom I have heard was doing a phenomenal job on Detective Comics.
You didn't listen to me talk about it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
You're not a fan?
No.
Okay. Well, that's the buzz I've heard.
I beat it up last night. I mean, so clearly you were eating dinner during the time of Comic Roundtable where I was beating this book up. So, okay.
Yeah, I actually, no one cares about this. My daughter Brittany called while I was trying to listen to you guys, so I was talking to her. Anyway, so this is a new Batman and the Outsiders. Brian Edward Hill, as I said, writing. Dexter Soy is doing the art. I don't know. Is that something, because you and I were big Batman and the Outsiders fans from the original series from 1983, yes. I think it was that came out.
83, 84, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Yay or nay? Probably sounds like nay.
First, let me sound old. That's not my Outsiders. So, no, I won't be getting it. I won't be getting it based on the 3 issues. I think it's 3 issues of Detective Comics. 3 or 4 issues of Detective Comics that I've read that were basically a setup to do Batman and the Outsiders. I mean, literally that's all it was. I mean, they have a villain that was from Markovia, so they could do the whole Markovia thing, which makes 0 sense to me because there is no Geoforce. There's none of that. So, but no, I have no intention of getting it because I did not enjoy the detective run. The story basically is, Batman, and tell me if you've heard this. Batman finds somebody to teach the youngins how to be superheroes. So instead of it being Batwoman, right, which is how those whole new Detective Comics start out.
Yeah.
So he gets Jefferson. He gets Black Lightning. Goes to Metropolis, scoops up Black Lightning, has him, and then proceeds to tell them to sit on the sidelines while he goes and fights this villain or whatever. And then they choose not to. So the new lineup is Black Lightning, Orphan, Signal, Katana is the new lineup. So a large chunk of the Batman family, got to do something with them. So I guess this is what you do with them. And then, they're going to run around the globe fighting, these things that Batman once done. He informs them they're going to be called the Outsiders. The only part of the book I enjoyed was this very last issue. The very end of it, Bruce is there telling Jefferson, the Outsiders, and they're in Metropolis because he's dropping them back off Metropolis because I guess Jefferson lives in Metropolis. And he goes, and he's going to come and ask you questions, and you just tell him it's the Outsiders and tell him whatever you want because it's just going to be what it is. And he drives off, and Jefferson's like, who? And then instantaneously Superman's there. And he's like, oh, that who? Right? And he's like, like he's thinking, how do I handle this? And all Superman says is, look, do whatever. That's fine. Do what Bruce is asking you. Just don't become Bruce. And that's it. And he flies off, kind of a thing. But I'm not looking forward to it at all. I mean, I like Dick Tressoy's artwork. But I did not care for the characterization. To me, was way off on almost everybody in that comic for the issues that Hill had. The way he treated Batgirl and Barbara was ridiculous. I just didn't enjoy it. So whereas normally I would be excited because I have either collected as they were coming out or have gone back and collected every version of Batman the Outsiders or the Outsiders or whatever, because I've liked them as being kind of this alternative quasi Black Ops version of the Justice League. They're going to go do the crap that the Justice League has to keep a pretty face, so they aren't going to do. But now they're all kind of like relatively street level Batman. They're Batman lights running around doing stuff. And that doesn't interest me. So, but that's great. I'm glad there's people out there who've enjoyed this bit of a detective, but I pretty much have every issue I've talked about, I've beat up. So,
okay. Well, your opinion counts a lot for me. So I was thinking about maybe getting a trade of the Detective comic run by Hill, but maybe I won't.
Were you thinking about picking up the Batman and the Outsiders, the new Batman and the Outsiders?
Probably not. I wasn't seriously considering it. Okay. Just because I was looking at the character lineup and the concept like you just described, and I thought, wait a minute, I just read that in the Detective Comics run that I did get recently with Batwoman doing the same thing. Right. I'm like, well, why are we telling the same story again so soon? Even if it's with different characters, some different characters. So, yeah. Okay, we have some sad news to report here. I can't believe so many of these comic book artists have and contributors have died here, and it was, I think, just within days of each other.
Yeah, it just seems like it, right?
Yeah, it was very weird, but that's we're gonna, I'm sure, have more of this very soon, just because.
Well, they're all getting to be that age.
Yeah, exactly. So
like the golden age, just kind of.
Yeah. Russ Heath, artist Russ Heath. He was 91. He worked on, among many things, but he worked on DC's Our Army at War. More importantly, personally, he did the illustrations for the Roman and Revolutionary Army toy set ads that I saw in the back of comic books for years.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just generally speaking, I really like Russ Heath's work. So if people haven't ever heard of Russ Heath or, haven't checked out his stuff, I encourage you go look him up, because he had a really cool style, really good work. Similarly, Marie Severin, the lady who worked at Marvel Comics, did a lot of work, penciled, inked, colored many Marvel Comics. She died at age 89. She also was a colorist at EC Comics back in the day. But at Marvel Comics, she worked on a run of Doctor Strange. So after Ditko left the comic, there was somebody else on it. And then when that somebody else, and forgive me for not remembering his name, when he left the comic, Stan Lee asked Marie Severin to work on it and did some work there. She also worked on Hulk, Submariner, or Submariner, depending on how you pronounce that word, that character's name. She, again, personally, for me, she co-created and designed the Spider-Woman's original costume.
Still my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, I love that costume.
So this is the one where most of her faces and head's covered.
Mm-hmm.
So
I liked it.
You prefer that over the later version?
Well, I like the hair being loose, but I don't know. I still. Yeah.
I mean, really, they didn't change the costume all that much from the original version. It was just, I think, mostly the removal of the headpiece. Right. But she also worked on some DC Comics in the late 90s and early 2000s, including, I think, Adventures of Superman. I think that was was that the one based on the animated series, I think,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. But yeah, she has died as well. And
Well,
then
what I didn't realize is that she did the breakdowns for a lot of Kirby's great covers. Kirby actually wanted her to do the breakdowns because he thought she had better design ideas than what he did. So she would literally do the breakdown for the covers, and then he would go back and, Kirbyize them, kind of a thing. Which to me, I was like, wow, that's beyond, her own body of work. If you don't respect that, if you're somebody who respects Kirby, that Kirby was like going, no, I want this person, and that's not normal for him to have other people do it. I was like, wow, I was really shocked to hear that. That's something I did not realize that, that she was doing his breakdowns for, classic Captain America covers and whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah, as far as I could see, I could tell, she was very well respected in the comic book creative community.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, at age 75, artist Gary Friedrich has also died. He's best known, I think, for creating Ghost Rider at Marvel Comics, and more recently, I guess, losing a lawsuit with Marvel over the ownership of that character.
Right.
So, yeah, that's just too bad. Like I said, we're gonna hear more about creators that are getting up there in age, like this. We'll be losing them. Mm-hmm. All right, from one heavy topic to another, perhaps, I don't know. So, was it last weekend at the time of this recording, Travis, where this occurred? This next topic? Was it either last weekend or the weekend before?
I don't remember.
Yeah. So, a lot of comic book professionals, I'll just say it was last weekend. They started on Twitter mostly, I think, if not exclusively, were pointing out or calling out, or making a statement, I should say, that might be the better way, against the Comicsgate movement. And I just thought that was two things. One, it was interesting that it just kind of happened. I think this was in large part as a response to some stuff going on with Darwyn Cooke's wife, Marcia. She was getting a lot of, her attention was called to somebody posting something that Darwyn Cooke, an interview that Darwyn Cooke had done, and I think the idea was that some Comicsgate people were using that to align Darwyn Cooke with them.
Yes. Yeah. They took a small piece and took it out of context and then used it to help drive their drivel, basically. Yeah.
And so
she took offense to it.
Yeah.
That Darwyn would never be that type of a person.
And yeah.
And she unflinchingly went after them. So
yes, exactly. And then some people in the comic book community came to support her online, and then a few people, Jeff, I think it started with Jeff Lemire, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Jeff Lemire, Tom, not King, what's his name?
Tom Taylor,
thank you, Tom Taylor, and then Bill Sekowitz wrote a big thing also.
Yeah. Sienkiewicz, yes. Yeah.
Sekowitz.
So they, basically came to her to support her and state unequivocally their opposition to that movement. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was very interesting that they finally did that.
Finally.
Yeah. Yes.
That's part of my issue.
At least they did.
Yes.
I find it curious. I know why they don't. Or I could guess why they don't, but I find it curious that at the publisher level, that they're not addressing this kind of stuff. in a more vocal way. I think that I've seen some publishers coming out and stating that they don't subscribe to that viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously Marvel and DC, I don't think have in any substantial way, or in any way, perhaps.
It feels to me like online, both companies have floated statements that the comics have made like way back in the day. Because I mean, Matt, used to be that the commercials in between stories and whatnot, you literally have Superman saying that this is all the stuff that we shouldn't, all this anti-immigrant, blah 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 blah. This is all stuff that's bad, and I think both companies have floated those old ads again in the past, not recently with this what's going on. And I don't know if how well your listeners are in knowing the kind of the history of the whole Comicsgate monsters and whatnot. They've actually been around for quite a while. I've dealt with them before they had a name. They've embraced the name. It was a name that basically anybody reasonable gave them because they used the same tactics as the whole Gamergate thing. And then they just kind of embraced the name and took it on as their own whatever. And it was easier to coin them under that than under the other stuff. But these guys, the kind of core hoodlums, have been around for quite some time, and their ilk have been around for quite some time. And at least, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the podcasting world is like, because other than hanging out on the show, I'm not involved in it a lot. But on YouTube, they were terrors well before any of this stuff, before they had a name and whatnot. And a large chunk of them come out of the YouTube universe. That's where they generate their money at to continue to be the awful human beings that they are. So I personally have had friends run off by them. So
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So a part of me is, yay, they're getting the attention that they deserve. And that there are plenty of people calling them on their shenanigans and whatnot now. But there have been people of color and queer people who have been terrorized by these people for years. And it's somewhat unfortunate that it took a widow of a extremely famous white guy for it to reach the level to where well-named creators have started calling these people out. There's plenty of people who've been calling them out for a long time. They're just not the people that everybody knows or feels comfortable in backing, I guess, or whatever. So, I mean, personally, I think the silence around it has allowed it to get to the level that it is. People should have been calling BS on this stuff way a long time ago. So, yeah.
Most of my knowledge of this stuff, obviously, like, you've told me about your experiences with these people that I think are, as you say, are now part of the named movement. But then, most of what I see is on Twitter, and so many threads that I've read over the last year or so. A lot of it, mostly probably in the last 6 months. Just I can't. I don't understand that viewpoint. It's just antithetical to what I think of as comic books are about. Not to mention just simple decency to other people, regardless of their sexual orientations, their gender, their color, their creed. I don't get it. I don't know what else to say about that other than I just don't agree with it, and I don't think there's a place in comic books for that, generally speaking. So I don't know. But I'm glad to see that there's finally starting to be a more prominent resistance or backlash to that.
Right.
So I just wish maybe Marvel and DC could step in and put their heft in the industry behind it.
You're right, because the problem is the people who are actually the victims of this, beyond Darwin Cook's widow, are small individual people who individually do not have the power to do anything against this group that is not, super organized, but they're large enough that it's really easy to dog whistle and bombard an individual person who has a beef or who says this isn't right. This is not how you treat people. Even not getting into the hostilities end of it, but just trying to say, hey, this is, not, I have a right to exist, kind of a thing. Cause that's what it's really coming down to a large degree. It's impossible. It's impossible to fight. We don't have the resources. I personally, with my 800 and some subscribers, I do not have the resources to actually go at these people like they should be gone after. I don't have the time of day to deal with it. I learned early on that, unless I want to spend my entire day cleaning up the messes that they create around me, that we all individually get silenced. It takes these people who've got thousands and thousands of subscribers that listen to them and respect them to make something happen, to stop this stuff from happening. It's not going to change the way people think, but if nothing else, at least silence them to keep them from hurting and making everybody else's life miserable. And so that's why I think the companies need to be stepping in to put their weight behind it too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, you can have your opinions about things, but that doesn't mean you need to be crappy to another human being.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I could go on and rage about it. And I have in the past. I have plenty of videos where that's been the case. But yeah, the whole thing is awful. And like I said, it is great that it's getting the attention that it deserves finally. I hope it just doesn't go away. I hope it continues. So,
yeah. Well, so let's move to our last topic of the episode here. Speaking of something that is deserved, this is something that we could have included it in the earlier topic with the discussion about the other publishers and trades, but I thought this was a nice note to end on. It was recently announced that, or at least speculated, I'm not entirely sure of the actual numbers, but Ms. Marvel, the comic Ms. Marvel, has sold 500,000 trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
And
that's paper. That's physical copies. That's not talking digital. That's literally physical copies.
Yes. So this comic about this young woman, and I quite honestly, I've not read the Ms. Marvel comic. I've read the character in other things.
You need to read the
I
comic.
know. I have the first volume on the trade on my bookshelf, just waiting to read. I'm probably gonna, after this, I'm gonna go pull it off, make sure I read it sooner rather than later. And so I just thought that was really cool, Ms. Marvel, because I know, if I remember correctly, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that one of the books that was objected by certain people?
Oh yeah. Oh, come on. She's a Muslim American teenage high school girl dealing with the typical stuff that goes on with being a high school kid, plus dealing with the fact being a Pakistani Muslim American that has to try and operate in both, this is what it's like to be in America, but it's also, this is what it's like to be part of the Muslim faith. And all that stuff that goes along with that. So she's kind of a wonderful, in some ways, it's like old school, Peter Parker trying to figure out how to deal with high school and being kind of the goofy, she's one of the smart kids and she hangs out with the smart kids. And so she's kind of a, in like a million different ways, is she kind of the underdog kind of a deal and whatnot. It's a really great, charming, fun, comic. I have collected it since the beginning. I've been very happy with it. There have been a few moments in the, late 40s, because the book's been around for 40 plus issues now. It's 50 some issues now have been put out. They've renumbered it a number of times. But it's still great. It's great. And it captures all that stuff really well. As somebody who doesn't know tons about the Muslim faith, it doesn't deep dive into it, but it gives you an understanding of how it operates. kind of a thing, or how it operates for her. Yeah, I mean the some of the leaders of the Comic Gates thing and cut videos when that book first came out, talking about how awful it was because they show the the white girl as being the bad person in the comic book and whatnot. Well, in the first issue, the white girl that's the bad character would be the bad character in any high school drama because she's the cheerleader and she's looking down on the nerdy kids. That's been every story for forever. I can't, so for them to try and twist it into something else is ridiculous. No, it's a great comic. My kids love it. I buy it for my daughter Chloe, who's 17 now. I buy it for her in trade because she doesn't consume in singles, but so I rebuy it, to have her read it in trades because it's just awesome. She's a superhero fangirl herself. She actually goes and writes fanfic. Her number 3 fanfic story is her writing a love story between Storm and Wolverine. She ends up early issues. She ends up running into actually Wolverine, and she of course is fangirly, like freaking out, and then has to try and explain her fanfic and stuff. It's just fun. And Wolverine's response to that is just funny. It's just a great book. It's fun. It's a fun book.
I've encountered a little bit of what you just said about the fan fiction in I think in the Champions comic that I was getting. Yeah. In which she's in that. And I kind of fell in love with the character, reading her in Avengers and then in the Champions book. So yeah, I definitely, I definitely have, a void to fill, in not getting that book. So I need to go get some more. So I thought it was a great, it's great that the, sold 500,000 trades. I know, or at least it's been speculated that, it sells, if not as well, almost as well in digital form as in the singles form, the single paper form, on top of that. So, I mean, obviously the work speaks for itself. Right. There's a lot of people out there buying it. You're double buying it. So, I mean,
right.
So good job, Marvel, on introducing this wonderful character and all the people involved. Was
G.
that
Willow Wilson?
Yeah, I was gonna say G. Willow Wilson
yeah.
was but she's moving away from that book, as I recall, right? Because she's doing.
What?
Is she? Oh, okay. I assume that because she's doing some work.
I don't know
elsewhere.
I'm kind of wondering. She's gonna be doing right. She's gonna be working for DC.
Yeah.
But my question has been: does that mean she's leaving? That there's either the book's going to end or she's going to quit writing it. I can't envision somebody else writing the book. So,
well, yeah, that would be my concern as well. So, okay, well, see, this is great. There's this goes back to our conversation earlier about Dan DiDio and how much is out there in the market. This book has been around for several years now. I haven't encountered it. It's new to me. And, I can't wait to dive in and read more about this character in that world that she inhabits. Okay, Travis, I think that's all I have on my list. Is there anything else that you wanted to throw in there?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's see here. Just checking the chat box here. Oh, just real quick, Travis, LaRosa wants to know, where's your, for people that are watching the video, where's your Batman background? Cause you don't have that.
I don't. I think I'm retiring it. I've had it up for, yeah, right.
This is breaking late news.
Yes, it is. So I think I'm retiring it. I've had it up for, I think 6 years. This may be going into 7. I have to do the math because September is when I started my channel. But yeah, so I think I'm retiring it. I'm kind of tired of having a sideways little Batman all over the place and whatnot. So we'll see. It may come back. I don't know.
What I'm hoping, Travis, is that you have a rotating set of backgrounds that you'll be using.
Oh, okay. I'll give that some thought.
All right. Well, thanks everyone that has participated in the chat. I want to thank everyone who has watched the video and wasn't able to chat, but thank you for watching. Thanks everyone in the podcast feed for listening. Travis, where can people follow you, watch your videos, just generally interact with you?
On YouTube, it's Oddfellows Thoughts. Simply type in that whole as all one word, and you'll get me. Don't just type in Oddfellows, because then you get a whole kind of semi-secret society that's interesting, but not me. And
is
if
it?
You want to chat, what's that?
Or is it?
Yeah, I don't know. And then of course, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is _Gauntman_. Well, no, it's _Gaunt_man. I probably should change that at some point just to Oddfellows Thoughts. I think if you type in Oddfellows Thoughts,
you get you.
You'll get me. So because that's the name I do use there. So
yeah,
come and chat with me.
Because I don't like typing the underscores, so I just type in Oddfellows and
there you go. So.
All right. People can, if you have comments or questions, anything along those lines, you can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also go to the website, longboxreview.com, leave comments there, and chat with me on Twitter at longboxreview. It's pretty simple. I kept it pretty simple, because I didn't want to have different names for different things. So
I wasn't thinking branding when I named myself.
Yeah, I know. So. Yeah, that's all right though. It's all good. Travis, thank you for joining me again. I always enjoy these chats with you, and like I said, we should probably get together sometime and chat some specific comics. Sometimes we haven't done that in a while.
It has been a while.
All right. Thanks everybody. I will talk at you later. Bye bye.